Hello class, we're about to start the exam 2 review. So let's start with problem 1a. We have 2 to the negative 400 divided by 2 to the negative 405. So since we're dividing with the same base, we carry the base and we subtract the exponents. We take the first exponent, which is negative 400, minus the second exponent, which is a negative 405. Now we will have 2 to the negative 400 plus 405. We know negative 400 plus 405 will give us 2 to the 5th power, which is 32. Now, we go here to b. We have 4b to the negative 3, c to the 12, 16b to the negative 4, c to the 3rd. So what we would do is this here. We know, first of all, that 4 and 16, both of them have 4 in common. So in our numerator, we'll have 1. Our denominator, we will have 4. Now, this b to the negative 3 and b to the negative 4, we could switch them. Since the negative exponent is in your numerator, we will bring that down to your denominator, which will make it positive. And since this negative exponent is in your denominator, we'll bring it up to our numerator, which would make that positive. Now, we have c to the 12th divided by c to the 3rd, which would give us c to the 9th, because 12 minus 3 is 9. So now, we will have 1 times b to the 4th times c to the 9th, all over 4b to the 3rd. Now, we know b to the 4th divided by b to the 3rd. We could go off to the side here. We have b to the 4th minus 3, which would give us b to the 1st, or just b. So now in our numerator, we don't have to write the 1 because we have other values here. We will have b times c to the... Here I got something caught in my throat, but it's b, c to the 9th, because we will have b to the 4th divided by b to the 3rd, and we will subtract the exponent, and that will leave us b, and we will have our c to the 9th. In our denominator, we would just have 4. And that is our final answer. Now, we're going to scroll down here to C and D. Now, we have 2b to the negative 5, c to the negative 2 to the 3rd, 3b to the 4th, c to the negative 6 to the negative 2. So, we would take everything in this parenthesis to the 3rd power. 2 to the 3rd power we know is 8. b to the negative 5 to the negative 3. Whenever you take a power to a power, you multiply, and that will give us b to the negative 15. c to the negative 2 to the 3rd, we'll take a power to a power, we multiply, and that will give us c to the negative 6. Now, in this next parenthesis, we'll take everything in here to the negative 2 power. We know 3 to the negative 2 power would be 3 to the negative 2. b to the 4th to the negative 2 will give us b to the negative 8. And c to the negative 6 to the negative 2 will give us c to the 12th. Now, we will have, in our numerator, we will have 8. This b to the negative 15 will go in our denominator. That's b to the 15. c to the negative 6 will go in our denominator as c to the 6. And then for our next parenthesis, we have 3 to the negative 2. We know that will give us 1 over 9. b to the negative 8. This b to the negative 8 will go to our denominator and become positive, and c to the 12th will stay in our numerator. So we have 1 times c to the 12th. Now we multiply. 8 times 1 times c to the 12th will give us 8c to the 12th. In our denominator, we will have our 9. b to the 15th times b to the 8th will give us b to the 23rd, and we will bring over our c to the 6th power. Now we can simplify these c's here. So we will have 8, c to the 12th divided by c to the 6th will give us c to the 6th, all over 9, b to the 23rd. Now we go here to D. Now we have 20b to the negative 2, c to the negative 9, 27b to the 5th, c to the 3rd, all over 18b to the 3rd, c to the negative 1, and 30b to the negative 1, c to the negative 4. So this is what we would do. We would take 20 times 27, which is 540. And then what we would start doing is moving these b's here. B to the negative 2 times b to the 5th will give us b to the 3rd. Because when you multiply with the same base, you add the exponents. C to the negative 9 times c to the 3rd will give us c to the negative 6. All over. 18 times 30 is also 540. B to the 3rd times b to the negative 1 will give us b squared. And c to the negative 1 times c to the negative 4 will give us c to the negative 5. Now, first of all, we know these 540s will simplify out. B to the 3rd divided by b to the 2nd, we know is b. Now, we're going to switch these here. That c to the negative 5th will come up to the numerator as c to the 5th, and c to the negative 6 will go in our denominator as c to the 6th. So now we will have b, c to the 5th divided by c to the 6th, we know is c to the negative 1, or just c in our denominator. So this will be our final answer. Well, yes, this will be our final answer. Now we scroll here to E. Now with E, we have 32 to the 2/5 power. So what we would do first, let's separate this exponent. This will give us 32 to the 1/5 power to the 2nd power. Because remember, when you take a power to a power, you multiply. 1/5 times 2 will give us 2/5. So we technically have not changed the problem. So now this 32, we will have the 5th root of 32, and that will be squared. The 5th root of 32 is 2, and we will have 2 squared, which is 4. And that's our final answer for E. Now we go to F. We have negative 8, and listen, this 4/3 is actually negative. I know it's hard to see, but this is actually a negative sign in front of the 4/3. So first thing, let's get rid of that negative. So what will happen is we will have negative 1/8 to the 4/3 power. Now if you notice, this negative doesn't stay with the 8 because it's on the outside. So now we will have 1/, we will separate this. This would be 8 to the 1/3 power to the 4th power. So this will give us 1/, well actually it's supposed to be negative. Be negative 1/, the cube root of 8 to the 4th power. So it'd be negative 1/, the cube root of 8 is 2 to the 4th power. So this would end up being a negative 1/16. And that is our final answer. Now we come down here to G. We have B, and this exponent is also negative. B to the negative 1/3 over B to the negative 4/3. So since we have the same base, we will subtract the exponents. B to the negative 1/3 minus 4/3. And this would give us B to the negative 5/3 power. Now, what will end up happening here is this will end up being 1/b to the 5/3 power. And that is our final answer. Now we go here to H. Now, we have 16b to the 8th, c to the negative 4. And then we have 25b to the negative 6, c to the 4th to the 3/2. So, this is what we would do. The first thing I would suggest we do is let's isolate these parentheses. I'm just going to start with this first parenthesis. So I will have 16 to the 1/4, b to the 8/4, and c to the negative 4/4 power. Divided by, this will give us 25 to the 3/2. 25 to the 3/2, b to the negative 18/2, and c to the 12/2. 16 to the 1/4 is the same thing as the 4th root of 16, which is 2. B to the 8 divided by 4 is b to the 2nd, and c to the negative 4/4 is c to the negative 1. All over. 25 to the 3/2 power. That is the same thing as saying 25 to the 1/2 to the third. Now b to the negative 18 over 2 is b to the negative 9. And c to the 12 over 2 is c to the 6th. Now, we know, well, first of all, we know we would have 2b squared in our numerator. Well, actually, we would have 2b squared minus a negative 9, because these have the same base, and you would subtract the exponents. And then we would have c to the negative 1 minus 6. All over 25 to the 1/2 power, we know is 5, and that would be to the third power. So now we would have 2b to the 11, and then c to the negative 7, all over 125. And since this c is negative, we know we're going to bring it down to our denominator. So it would be 2b to the 11th, all over 125, c to the 7th power. And that is the final answer. Now we start problem number 2. It says simplify completely by hand. Now we have 32b to the 2nd, c to the 5th, all over 2b to the negative 6, c to the 1st, and all of this is taken to the 1/4 power. Now first I would say take care of what's in the parentheses first. 32 divided by 2 is 16. B squared divided by b to the negative 6, we know would be b to the 8th. C to the 5th over c to the 1st would give us c to the 4th. Now we would take all this to the 1/4 power. So basically what we will have is the 4th root of 16, b to the 8th, c to the 4th. And this will give us the 4th root of 16 is 2. The 4th root of b to the 8th power is b to the 2nd power. And the 4th root of c to the 4th is c. And that is the final answer. Now we go to b here. Now if you notice here, we have all of these exponents. Okay, first thing that we should do is change this 64 to 8 to the 2nd power. So let me take care of that. This will be 8 to the 2/3, b to the negative 1/3, c to the 3/4. And we would change that 64 to 8 to the 2nd power to the negative 1/3 times b to the 1/2 times c to the negative 5/2. Now, we know in our next step, we have 8 to the 2/3, b to the negative 1/3, c to the 3/9, well actually 3/4, not ninths. Be c to the 3/4, and then 8 to the 2nd to the negative 1/3 power will give us 8 to the negative 2/3 power, b to the 1/2, and c to the negative 5/2. So now we multiply. We have the same base. We can add the exponents. 2/3 plus a negative 2/3 is 0. So this would be 8 to the 0, b to the negative 1/3, and b to the 1/2. We will have to find the common denominator of 1/3 and 1/2, which would be 6. So this end up being a negative 2/6 and a positive 3/6, which would give us b to the 1/6. Now c to the 3/4, and then a negative 5/2. The common denominator of 4 and 2 is 4. So this would be a negative 10/2, and 10/4 and 3/4, which would give us a negative 7/4. So now we know that 8 to the 0 power is 1. We really don't have to write that, but we would have b to the 1/6 all over the c to the negative 7/4. The c would go in our denominator. So it'd be c to the 7/4 power. And that's it. Now we scroll down here to c. We could take all these to the 3rd power. 2 to the 3rd is 8. B to the 3rd is b to the 9th. And c to the 8th to the 3rd is c to the 24th. So that took care of c. Now we go to d. All of this is taken to the 0 power, and we know that equals 1. So we're done with that problem.